and I am an author, and I also do coaching. Um, who I am is also a domestic violence survivor. I went through my own experience in a marriage, and afterward, I got help. And don't want to go too much into it, but to start, but I was inspired to help others after going through my own experience when I realized how much it happens and how much we are not taught about this. I kind of made that my career and wrote my book to be able to help people.
Thank you for sharing. So I guess my first question is to you. Looking back on your specific situation of domestic violence, what was something or a few things that you learned about yourself as you were exiting out of that situation?
Oh, well, I will say in when a person goes through domestic violence, it's a power balance, it's a power grab. And what happens is the person who is the survivor, like myself, loses so much by personality. So as I left the relationship, I really went through, well, who am I and what do I want to do now? So I learned all over again, brand new, who I was and what was important to me afterward.
Yeah, learning about yourself is so important. Anytime I speak to anyone who's gone through a difficult relationship, whether it's financial abuse, domestic violence, or any type of abuse, really, that is key. Another thing that they actually share is that they weren't surprised that they were caught up in that situation, as painful as it is. When you work with men and women and you work with clients, do they feel a sense of responsibility when they find themselves in these situations because maybe they were going through something at the time and just attracted the wrong partner?
Yes, I would say coming out of it, there's a big sense of shame and guilt in having done something wrong. But look, you didn't do anything wrong. Just to say that to everybody, no one did anything wrong. That it happens to everybody. I mean, well, 1 in 3 people experience a toxic relationship. There's not anything wrong with a person that is succumb to it. It's just that we don't know what the warning signs are, and we don't know necessarily contains um, what entails a toxic relationship, and so we're not taught it. So we really cannot be blaming ourselves, and that's a big thing to work through that I work through with people.
How much of a struggle, actually, let me ask it this way. What are some of the obstacles that people face in general when it comes to not feeling the shame, not feeling the guilt of the relationship that they just came out of?
Um, I mean, if we're speaking Americans in the United States, we're a very individualistic society. And with that, there is a feeling of everything is our responsibility, and it's up to us to put on your bootstraps, which is obviously I really hate that phrase. And that actually did not even originate in its meaning. The original meaning of it was actually that we people cannot just put on their bootstraps because we do live in a society regardless, we live in this society where we're told that that's what we need to do, whether that's make our own money or we need to like do XYZ to help society, whatever it is. It also comes into we're also responsible and to blame for things. And if you look at how societies originated and how many other societies throughout the rest of the world, uh, they're more collectivist and people help one another and don't blame themselves for things. And so I am ADHD and I forgot the rest of the question.
No, actually, you did a really good job because I think sometimes it's very difficult for some people not to feel the shame or the guilt. I remember one woman, and actually two people, a woman and a man, shared this, that the shame that they felt was because to them their social status was higher than maybe the typical victim in their mind, right? Like they were in corporate America, corporate Canada, they had a good job, they had a house, they had decent friends. Like in their minds, they thought that someone that is in a bad relationship is the barista at Starbucks or the McDonald's worker, right? There's this like vision or this visual of the stereotypical or the avatar of someone who's being abused. Do you see that impacting some people, maybe being naive when they find themselves in this situation because they're like, not me. I came from a good family. I have a good job.
Um, yes, but I will say more often than not, I see people putting blame for that onto others. How could, or themselves, how could I have done it because of this? Or how could someone have been in this because of this? When I first got out of my abusive marriage and I went to a support group, I was stunned that there was an attorney in the group there with me, having experienced the same thing. I was stunned that there was a lesbian there who had experienced the same thing from a woman. We have such an idea in this country that it is always people who are in poverty and it's always a man to a woman, and that is simply not the case.
And that's a big part, right? Like it could be a homosexual relationship, it could be a heterosexual relationship, it could be anything. And I know earlier we talked about some of the warning signs. What are some of the warning signs that people maybe overlook that they need to pay close attention to in their relationships?
hmm So I'm gonna look at this in two ways, internally and externally. So the warning signs externally, first is looking at how the person treats other people, like not just you, but how do they treat others? Look at how they are thoughtful of you and your feelings, how they're thoughtful for other people's feelings. And then the internal would be checking in with yourself and how do you feel? Do you feel happy? Do you feel safe? Do you feel free to make decisions? And one of my favorite ways to check in with this with yourself is to check in your head. What does my head feel? What does my heart feel? And what does my gut feel? And keep talking to yourself until those are aligned. That's the internal warning signs we can check.
So then 21 is to make sure you check in with yourself
Yeah.
and
Do you
right
feel safe
and know
inside?
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how can we, if we don't feel safe inside, how can we get to a place where we start to feel safe inside?
Well, it's going to be unique for each person, but if you are in a relationship and don't feel safe in that relationship, then probably leave. The sooner the better, right? If I think safety is the biggest indicator of whether or not to leave. But not like every everyone makes mistakes. No one's perfect, right? Like it's not always the answer to leave. But the key is when you talk to the person and you tell them about how they feel, how do they respond? Do they want to change? Do they care? That's where you're gonna know if they are willing to change to not hurt you and they feel sorry for hurting you and they feel for your feelings, then maybe that's something that can be worked out. But if you don't feel that from them, then that when they're not going to change.
I know as I got older, began to understand relationships, I think better. That's probably still up for debate a little bit, right? But definitely I have more knowledge now in my late 30s than I did in all of my 20s. And as I approach 40, one thing that I have come to terms with is that what I want today and going forward is much different than what I wanted a decade ago,
Mm,
right? I've talked to a number of people and I've come to the conclusion that I give yourself every 10 years, your perception changes on what you want. In your 20s, you probably wanted someone that was a size zero and whatever, right? In your 30s, you're like, okay, I need someone to actually get along with, that I can have a conversation with, right? In your 40s, I want to be able to grow old with this person and understand life. Maybe we're raising children and things like that. Do you see people's perspective change, especially as they approach 30 or maybe, sorry, approach 40 and later on in 40 versus, let's say, earlier on in their relationships?
Hmm. Like thinking about my clients across the age span, right? I think that the perspective does change, though I think that it changes due to experience. It's not necessarily because of the age. I think it's because of the life experience. And there is also this theory that all of our cells change every 7 years. So if that's true, I think there's something to that too.
I heard that one as well, like the body changes, right? Not only does the body change, body does actually keep the score. So if you have trauma,
Hmm.
trauma's impacting your body in a number of ways. Sometimes you don't know it, sometimes you have to go to the doctor to see it. But one thing that is certain, and I've seen this with a number of people, is that the body will shout it,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
remember one man said that, Terrain, I'm too old for heartbreak. I'm almost 50. I'm like, you can have your heart broken at 80. People actually die from heartbreak, right? So there isn't an
Yeah.
expiry on it, and there's an expiry on love. What are some of the struggles that you see people dealing with in their relationships, or not so, let's say not romantic relationship, but let's just say in their life when they're trying to, as you pointed out, love themselves and know themselves?
Um, Let me answer that, but I want to speak to trauma in the body for a moment because I think that's so important that you brought that up. I want to explain a little bit about the brain science on this. So, when a person experiences something that's really traumatic, the brain does not actually store a complete memory. It stores the emotional memory, and the emotional memory will store in the limbic system. And then once you go and look at that memory and really process it with a therapist or with a friend or journaling or a coach or a pastor or whoever, um, if you go and look at that memory, you're going to pull it out of the limbic system and put it into the prefrontal cortex. And that's where we look at things, and that's where executive functioning is, where we can actually like make decisions. And that's where we can start to put some words to it and to come up with a different script in our heads for it. So instead of I blame myself, I'm a victim, I stayed alive and I got out, I'm a survivor. So dealing with that trauma that happens uh, it'll still be in your body, but once you process it, it's going to move into a different place in your body, and it's it's going to live in your brain where you think about it instead of where you feel it as much. And so it doesn't have to always be shouting at you. It will not shout at you forever. It'll be a whisper.
And when it comes to that trauma that we're trying to resolve, I know that it can come from a number of places, right? It could be childhood, it could be maybe adulthood experiences. Um, do some people struggle with acknowledging that trauma so they can actually begin to work through it?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it's not to blame for this either, right? A lot of the reason why people don't acknowledge their trauma is because they're still living in some sort of trauma, whether that be like financial stress or job stress or my car broke down or whatever, like daily life gets in the way. And so a lot of times when I meet someone and they say, "Oh, I have had a past toxic relationship. I do want to work on that with you." It a lot of times it's months down the road. Let's get the person feeling good in their body and like get the coping skills, maybe grow their self-esteem a little bit more to where they feel able to look at the trauma. And I think that's the biggest reason why people don't and why they're afraid to, because their mental health is already kind of fragile.
So let me ask you a question then when it comes to that trauma. Let's say I'm in a relationship with a young lady. I'm glad I said young ladies, not young girl, young lady. Right? Because I know people say young girls and we're like, just make sure they're over the age of majority, please. Because there are people who do that. So if I'm in a relationship with a young lady and she's experiencing trauma and she's having some difficulties um handling it, right? I'm in the relationship. I want the best for her because I love her. I want to be there for her. But my understanding is that you can't want something for someone that doesn't want it for themselves, right?
Yes.
Right. So the person who's in a relationship with someone who's struggling with this, what advice maybe can we give to them?
I think if a person is struggling with it, it wouldn't necessarily be advice, but it would be asking questions about, what's going on and what has happened and where do you feel like you want your life to be different? Do you want your life to be different? Do you always want to feel like this? Um, that frames it in an empowerment way, right? To let that person make that choice, have the autonomy over what do I want to talk about? What do I want to grow on? And and I think that would be a lot more encouraging than saying, go to therapy. Like, yes, go to therapy, definitely, but I don't think people want to be told that.
Yeah, I think sometimes and maybe you've seen this where you see like these movies and the person is like pouring their heart out. I went through this. My mom did this. My dad did this. And the person's like, okay, let's go to therapy. Right? And the person's like, did you actually hear what I was telling you? Right? Right? Do you think some people they're listening, but they don't actually hear the pain, the emotion, and what the person is actually sharing with them when it comes to their trauma?
Yeah, absolutely. And if that also is not to blame on people. So my other specialty is neurodiversity. So I work with a lot of ADHD and a lot of autistic people. And I find that a lot of people, neurodivergent people, either have so much empathy that it can be really hard to hear sometimes, or I will find that they have cognitive empathy, like I can understand how you would feel, I can see that, but they don't always feel it. And so that's okay if that's, how that person is. So, yeah, sometimes the response is that they don't know how to respond, and that's okay. But then just have that conversation with the person. Like, what would help me is if you could, have some more active listening, or like maybe when a person has a conversation like must have eye contact, that can be really difficult too, right? So have a conversation while taking a drive, taking a walk. Like you don't have to be staring at each other the whole time and making it so intense. You can be doing a puzzle together, whatever it is. But like, yeah, make it so you're inviting the conversation instead of just trauma dumping the conversation too, right? So I think it goes on both people for how that conversation is going to go.
What do you think then are some of the steps that someone can take to maybe to rebuild after a situation like that? That is maybe causing them some stress.
Um, well, therapy, yes. Um, but whatever, so therapy is great because you talk about it with a professional who is able to understand it and help you look at life in different ways. And there's like a bajillion techniques we can use. But the important part is to move those memories from the limbic system to the cortex. So whether that's talking with somebody else, a therapist, a coach, a pastor, somebody, or it's journaling about it, maybe you're drawing it, maybe you dance it out, maybe you run it out on the football field. I don't know what you do, but like get it out of your body in some way. That's the most important thing, I would say.
I had a difficult relationship where there was some emotional abuse, and I was trying to rebound and recover from that. And one thing that I learned about myself was I was more resilient than I gave myself credit for.
Hmm.
I was more courageous than I gave
Hmm.
myself credit for, as well as there wasn't a place to feel the guilt and the shame. And I think that was important because if I were to feel guilt and shame from a relationship failing, from a relationship not working out, I think that as you get older, that some people feel more guilt and more shame because they may feel, oh my God, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50.
Hmm.
Finding love in a healthy relationship, that's for the young kids. If you don't find it in your 20s, you'll never find it. What are your thoughts about some people who get down on themselves because they're getting older in age? They're still having some of the struggles that they did later, earlier on in life, and they just don't know where to go.
Yeah, well, same advice of like getting the story out, getting it out of your body. Also, to that advice, I want to add for everybody is learning about the mechanisms of the trauma, like learning about the psychological mechanisms of a toxic relationship, whether that be from childhood or from the relationship. When you start learning about it, that brings so much empowerment. When you go, this is why that happened. Oh, these are the methods that people use to control people. Wow, that's messed up. Like when you start learning about it, then you can also go back to your experiences and go, okay, so this situation was that. This situation was this. None of these are my fault. And you start building the empowerment that way.
Do you
I
think
think,
it's difficult? Sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, and then as far as age, yes, it is more difficult as a person gets older to feel hope for finding love again, but it is possible. It is absolutely possible. I mean, there's a lot of single people out there, and I think getting to that place of feeling empowerment within yourself is like, I understand what's happened. I have talked about my trauma and I have grown from it. You're going to feel more love for yourself and you're going to put that out there and get it back.
So, to all the people out there who are approaching midlife, there is later love. I know you may go on the internet and you may see some things and they say that I want a woman who's 24, she's had one person or less. She weighs 120 pounds and she can cook better than Gordon Ramsay himself. Right? Men and
Then
women
that
out there,
person
they
has some therapy work to do on that aspect.
absolutely like people like that exist. Like I like to tell the men who look for that or the women who have their preferences always ask them this question. And the question I ask them is, this dream person that you've built, because here in Canada we have a store called Build a Bear, and you can actually build the type of bear you want. So it's like build a
Yes.
person. You know, a brown hair, 6 foot 6 inches, six figures. We know the jokes, right? If you were to build this person, why would they want you? And I think a lot of people struggle with maybe understanding that we all need work to be done. Um, but what I found is sometimes people they're able to identify the work that needs to be done, but what they do is that they would bury it in their job, in sleep, in sexual activities. Do you see some people coping in maybe not the best of ways when it comes to trying to find out about themselves and love themselves throughout the trauma?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy to just be chasing that next dopamine hit, is a lot of times what it is, right? Through dopamine, through sex, through shopping, through gambling, masking it through drug and alcohol use. People will do all sorts of things to just go find joy or cover up the trauma. As yeah, it's common. It's okay. You're not alone. That's how a lot of people do cope, but that is not a long-term solution because all of those things can have a really bad detriment after a very long time. Right. So get it out, go run amok afterward and have your fun. You know what? I did. I did. That was part of it. Right. But uh, eventually you're going to want some stability in your life, probably, and to like start making decisions for your future. And once you start prioritizing that, I think the rest starts to fall into place.
When it comes to leaving, let's say, a toxic partner or a partner that's unhealthy for that person, what kind of impact do you think in general that the person's friends can have on the party that's leaving, whether it's positive or not so positive?
Oh gosh. Yeah. In my case, I had a friend group when I was married and in an abusive marriage, toxic relationship, and that friend group, for the most part, was like, "Oh, you should stay and work things out," even after some really bad stuff had happened. Um, so sometimes friends do say things like that. Um, Hopefully, not all of your friends say that and all of your people in your life, but I would say talk to people outside of one friend group. I would say talk to different people with different perspectives and different life perspectives, so you can try and get a balanced look at what the situation is. If you are that friend, I think that it's really important to be there for the person and listen to them, and we can't push people to leave too early because then that's just another decision that's not being made by themselves. And also, sometimes it can be really, really dangerous. Actually, the time of leaving is the time when the highest chance of a person actually being murdered. So we have to be very cautious in how we approach helping someone. We just want to say, I'm here for you. What can I do to help? And start bringing them resources as they're ready. Um, and if you're the person, then seek out resources that are going to help you find um, your own growth and empowerment and safety.
That must be such a lonely experience to know that you're looking to leave a relationship that, to your point, is unsafe, it's dangerous, it's unhealthy, it's all these things. You go to your friends or you go to a person you believe you can trust, and they make it worse because the words that they're expressing to you aren't what you want to hear. Why do you think that there's that disconnect, and it seems that so many of us go to the wrong person or people for support?
Mm. Oh, that's so good. So I did go to the wrong person, and I kind of think it was subconsciously on purpose because I wasn't ready to leave. So I was like, let me go to this person that is gonna say, stay married. I've stayed married. Staying married is the way to go. Um, because I wasn't ready to hear it yet. So keep having the conversations. Sure, you're gonna have the person that first conversation, but keep having the conversations with other people because other people are gonna help you to give you the support to leave.
There's this clip I saw online, I think it was husband and wife. They were having some difficulties, and the wife went to her social media, the husband went to his, separate, of course, because don't the healthiest of relationships, they don't follow each other. Um, so she got support online, he got support online, and both parties from their online support system, and I've always frowned upon when people go online for support instead of each other. Everyone's saying, "Girl, leave him. Boy, we're gonna go out here. We're gonna go party. Where the holes at?" Right? Like all very not supportive, but in the way that okay, it's gonna end. It's like they were waiting for that opportunity so they can go on to the next person from their friend's perspective, right?
Mm,
And when they came back together to work it out, unfortunately, the man did actually seek out support from another woman, and that woman had ulterior motives, and she actually tried to have something with him. Nothing happened, but now you're making this situation more complicated because something almost did.
hmm
Now, when they got back together, they're going to look at things a little bit differently, right? Because he had a moment of lapse where it didn't go that far, but it almost did. When it comes to expressing what you're going through, what do you see are some of the dangers when people take it from within the household and put it all in front of the world to see, especially online?
mm, yeah. Um, well, when you're in a toxic relationship, the toxic person tends to say, don't tell anyone. And so Um, I think that if you're having the courage to tell anyone, I think that is a great step and a great sign, because so much it's told like, don't tell anyone else our business. So yes, talk to other people, but people securely, safely, emotionally safely, right? Like know who your safe people are, who are people that make you feel safe and make you feel loved, and talk to them. I don't think that there can be a lot of good at taking it to social media for that. If anything, like use anonymously on Reddit or something and see what happens there.
Yeah, like I was talking to someone who is she's almost 50 and she went online with some of her issues. And I asked her, I was like, when you were growing up, there was no internet. You had right, you had to talk it out 30 years ago and things like that. And she ran into a lot of difficulty. And actually, I spoke to her not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, or sorry, a few months ago. And she started hooking up with some people that she met online who were supporting her. And I say that in quotations because really it's a temporary form of support. And when I spoke to her a couple months after she did that, she said that she felt empty and used. And the concern there was not only did she have the trauma of her relationship being rocky, she had the trauma of what she did because she did cheat. Now she has the trauma of being used and feeling empty. What are your thoughts on someone who went from maybe, let's say, a singular form of trauma, like in that example, and now they made it complex because it's trauma stacking on top of each other?
Well, anytime there is any sort of toxicity in the relationship, it's complex trauma because the trauma is only singular if it is like a singular car accident, for example. A singular event is the only time that it is a singular trauma. Other than that, it is always complex because it's, a situation here and then a situation the next week and then the next week, et cetera, et cetera. So it's already going to be compounded. And for her to have a desire to go and cheat says that there's either something going on in the relationship or something from her previous life that was not treated. So you got to dig to the bottom. And the more things you add on top of it, then obviously the longer it takes to dig to the bottom.
So, just so I understand, so when we're going through something, um, one, the best way to get over someone is not to get under someone. Right? Let me establish that there before people think I'm some kind of freak. But the second one is to truly take the time and understand what you're going through, right?
Yes, yes, which is scary. It's terrifying to really take the time to look at what you're going through and to examine your emotions and examine your past. And that's why we do it with other humans, with a professional who can help with that or a friend. But when you're going through processing something with another human, you can emotionally regulate. That person can help you to feel emotionally calm. If you are sitting alone in your apartment and trying to process through stuff, no, that'll spiral you into depression. So it's scary to do it, but do it with someone else. It feels less scary.
That made me think about like the arrogance that I can fix my problems myself, even though whenever I'm trying to fix it, it doesn't get fixed. But I'll keep trying because if I have to go to a gate, if I have to go to a terrain, now I'm admitting that something may be wrong with me. And worse yet, maybe I'm the problem. Could that be a fear for some people?
Well, you did just describe narcissism. So in that case, perhaps that person is the problem, but not that they cannot get their own help. So I think there's that, but there's also a cultural fear of going to therapy because it used to be very much just white people go, right? And I know that culturally, yeah. So it's important to recognize, and a lot of a lot of cultures, it's no, we don't talk to outside the family. That's not safe for us. My partner is African American, so I know that that's the culture a lot of times, and not necessarily everyone in his family, but yeah, I see where um, especially if a family is really religious, the answer is you go to the pastor. Why would you go to a therapist? You go to the pastor, whatever it is. And pastors have pastoral counseling, and that's great too, right? But the word therapy is so scary for people because it's been stigmatized because of eh, in previous forms of therapy going back like decades ago, it was oftentimes okay, it started out like psychoanalytical, psychoanalysis, I can talk, where you're sitting for hours on a couch sharing all your problems, right? It's not like that anymore. Or it was just cognitive behavioral therapy, which is just think differently and you'll fix your problems. Like, that's not what therapy is anymore. So I think that there's like past ideas of what therapy was. Like the way that I'm like just talking and being myself right now, I that's how I am as a therapist too. You know, like we just be genuine and use a whole bunch of different techniques. So I think we got to undo some stigma on what it is and how it helps people.
One of the biggest stigmas around therapy that I heard was it was demonology, where it was like the cousin of an exorcism, right? Like, I had someone just yeah, I kid you not, I had someone describe it. I was like, really? Because in their mind, when someone, if you take it a couple years, well, like 10, 15 years ago, where someone's talking, right? Sometimes you'd hear a cry or a scream. So in their mind, they're thinking a pasture, holy water, electricity. They think all kinds of things where it's not that, right?
Yeah.
So, since you mentioned that, what are some of the stigmas or some of the misconceptions that you'd like to debunk about therapy and its benefits?
Um, okay. Yeah. First of all, you do not have to stick with the first therapist that you meet. When you want to find a therapist, I highly recommend search online and find like 5 to 10 profiles that sound interesting to you. And filter by, actually, I don't know how it works for Canada, but you can probably have insurance options, maybe not. I don't know how that all works, but find 5 to 10 people that you might want to work with. Email them about your availability and about some of the things that you want to work on with them. Meet them, get a free consultation and meet them and see if they're a good fit. I would also, oh shoot, ADHD brain. What was the thought? Um, oh, as therapists, we have our specialties. My specialty is neurodivergence and toxic relationships. Those are the things I'm really good at. So I want to work with people who want to come to me for that. If they come to me for something else, it might be something that I can help them with, but it might not be. So you want to specifically look for someone who knows how to treat what you know how to treat. There are therapists who are generalists who just do whatever, but for the most part, we get special training and continuing education in the things that are important to us that we feel confident to work with. So there's that, and then there's like 100 different therapy techniques. So also when you meet the therapist, ask them about what are the theories that underline how you work? What techniques do you use? Let's see what jives with me. What I think would feel good for me. And yeah, so it's so much more personalized of an experience than I think people think.
Earlier, you mentioned culture, and then I know we're talking about finding the type of therapy that is going to work for you. Um, Is there or could there be maybe a struggle for someone, let's say older in age, who grew up maybe as a younger child where it wasn't talked about, where today there's more awareness? Do you see maybe some of the um, gaps in people taking that first step because of their age as well as their culture?
I would put age as part of culture. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. As in, like, when we look at social location, I would definitely include age as part of that. Um, and I don't know about where you live, but in the neighborhood I live, most of the therapists are pretty old. So you can find someone that's around your age.
I think that would be helpful because it's like when you go into like a doctor's office, let's say a medical doctor, and even though I don't go through this, but like my doctor is so much more older than I am. I'd say like 10, 15, 20 years. I'm being nice, 20, 30 years older than me. I couldn't imagine being like 50 and going to like a therapist and they're 20. Right? Like some people may feel a certain type of way, right? Like because a lot of people give social value to life experience, right? Good, bad, or
Yeah.
indifferent. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So you said you're almost 40, right? I am going to be 42 at the end of this month. Um, so thanks. Um, Something that happens around the age of 40, and I don't know if this is just my experience, but I think something that happens is you become 40 and like all of a sudden almost everybody is half as old as us, right? People are like we're at this level where it's like, oh, people are between 40 and 80, and people are younger than 40. I'm older than half the people around. So sometimes, hopefully, some of that stigma starts to drop where you're like, okay, yeah, this person's younger than me, and that's how it is. Hopefully, that's what happens.
It wouldn't bother me. If you can help me, you can help me. 20, 30, 40, 90 years old, right? It's like the example I give with like love or finding happiness after 40. There's no expiry. And I
No.
think like your perception of the world, I think late 30s, I want to say maybe like 38 to about 48. I think that's like the sweet spot in life for most people when it comes to the way that they're going to see the world because one, they've been a number of years outside of school. Two, they've been a number of years maybe in a job that they're trying to make into a career, right? And hopefully, fingers crossed, they've had enough success in a relationship that they know what they actually want. And I think if we can spend more time understanding ourselves, we could ultimately understand the world a lot better. As you got older in your life, what are some things that you realized about yourself that you're like, okay, Kate did that?
Um, oh, I feel like it'd be easier for me to answer in how after I left my marriage was when I had to relearn who I was, right? And when I was like, I lost who I was. So I started doing the learning about what happened in the toxic relationship, what was my fault, what was not my fault. Oh, wait, none of this was my fault. Great. Okay. So healing from the traumas, learning about how they impacted me, then I was able to see what that looks like in the rest of the world, like other places, um, how there can be toxic relationships in workplaces, in all sorts of different organizations and friendships. It's not just in romance. So I was able to take that learning to like apply it in elsewhere. Maybe I don't know how to answer the question. What did I learn about myself? Because I mean, that's what I did is I was like, well, I'm going to become a therapist and write a book and to teach people about all this so other people don't have to go through it. Um, it opened my eyes up to inequalities and power dynamics because it's all about power dynamics. So I actually started learning a lot more about social justice and made that a big part of my personality too.
I want to ask you one last question, Kate, but this question, I'm going to give you three wishes, and you can wish for three things in regards to this question. What are three things you wish people knew about rebuilding their life after leaving a toxic partner, and why?
Mm, in there's one of the therapy types is called narrative therapy. And in narrative therapy, we look at how things will change over time. Um, well, that's one aspect of it. But what I want people to know in regards to this is one of my wishes is that when you first leave a relationship, it's going to feel really hard because you're rebuilding and you will have all the sense of freedom. And oh my gosh, that's terrifying. What do I do now? So I want people to know that yes, that's really scary and it's really hard, and it will get better if you do the work to work on yourself and grow and heal from the trauma. It will get better, and it is a long process, and that's okay. But there's no sooner time